Good afternoon. It's Friday here on 3 and Out all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Kevin, BJ, and Ben. Plenty to get to here on the show as we have pro football tonight with the Falcons and the Jags this weekend in their first preseason game. Let's just start right there. We'll chat with John Shipley, Jaguar reporter on SI, coming up in just a little bit. We'll also hear from Dave Archer, former Falcons quarterback, and with the Falcons Radio Network coming up in just a little bit on the show as well. Join us in the final hour of the program. But Falcons and Titans tonight, BJ and Ben, what are you looking for here in this one? And again, I know depending on how you approach it, it can mean different things, but what do you want to see when you see the Falcons Titans?
I mean, doesn't everybody want to see Kyle Pitts? I think isn't he the star that everybody wants to see? And the expectations are overwhelming. I mean, people are already talking about Pro Bowl, Rookie of the Year, stepping in for Julio. But we have to build up to that point. And I think all of us expect a huge season and just an incredible career out of Kyle Pitts. But I think the National Football League, fans around the country, you're not just talking about Falcons fans, want to see this guy. I mean, expected to be one of the best players at his position right away. Now, Ben, does that mean he plays one or two series tonight? Does that mean maybe he gets one pass thrown to him? Maybe not. Maybe nothing at all. It's preseason game one. You're not going to see anything dramatic. But I think fans are just excited and eager to see Kyle Pitts out there in an Atlanta Falcons uniform.
Yeah, BJ, but this is something, I mean, but isn't it also going to be weird just seeing Julio wearing another jersey? Like, isn't that going to be weird as well? I don't think Julio's going to play that much, but certain things you just have to see it to believe it. Like, Julio Jones is no longer an Atlanta Falcon. Julio Jones is going to have on that Titan blue and Smurf blue. And I do agree to everybody why everybody do want to see Kyle Pitts. You're watching the guy replace the other guy. So that's the guy right there, number 8. Who replaced Julio Jones, who's over there in the other jersey, right now. So yeah, I do think it's going to be about Kyle Pitts, and really, I want to see this 12 personnel, like bigger than just Kyle Pitts, Hayden Hurst, Gage, and really, I want to see how they're going to be. Obviously, they're not going to show everything they're going to do in the regular season, but I want to see how they're going to be utilizing these guys, because I do think that when you look at this game, something you said, Kevin, in the show meeting. It's going to be very rudimentary. It's going to be the easiest play calls you ever seen in your life. Line up, run to the right, run to the left. Let's get some good throws. But yes, BJ, it is going to be all about Kyle Pitts. Yes, it's going to be, there go Julio. And I guarantee you this. They probably never met each other. If Julio and Kyle Pitts go up to each other for some pleasantries just to say what's up, those cameras going to be snapping like it's going to be a viral moment. But, yeah, I'm looking forward to see how Kyle Pitts is going to be used. They treating Kyle Pitts like a quarterback. He only going to get maybe 2 or 3 series, if that. They're not going to let him go out there and play that long. But Julio Jones, if he's ever going to replace that red and black for that Smurf blue and Titan blue, hey man, so be it. But yeah, Julio another jersey one, and obviously Kyle Pitts, BJ. Let's see this unicorn in action.
Yeah, I'm looking to see what he could do. And again, I don't think we need to see a lot from him, Ben, but I think a little glimpse of what he could potentially do in this Falcons offense will be enough to kind of whet the appetite of a lot of folks. I think, to me, it's a guy like Richie Grant, second-round draft pick, who, in the initial depth chart, again, it doesn't really mean anything, but is listed as like the third string at his position for the preseason. Now, again, what does that mean? Probably nothing, but that's a guy, that second-round pick, Ben, second-round pick, you're expected to come in and play, not be third string necessarily on the depth chart. So I'm kind of interested to see how he plays, even in just a vanilla kind of base situation out there, and what he brings to the table. Because between him and A.J. Terrell, that's 2 years of 2 very high draft picks, first and second round, to shore up the back end of your defense. I know a lot of pressure on A.J. Terrell to start playing like it. Richie Grant obviously has got some of that swagger coming in, saying, look, I'm here to help, show we're championship caliber every day. Well, we got to see it here a little bit in preseason. And I know you might be a little depressed to say, hey, it's third string in the first depth chart that comes out. But again, I think that's just, it is what it is. He'll move up, but you'd like to see him play well tonight as well.
Yeah, and guys like Richard Grant, it's what's going to be what you look at in the preseason is not talked about a lot. We see mistakes. how do you bounce back from it? You're gonna make a mistake. You're gonna be out of alignment. You're not gonna remember defense. You're gonna forget who you got in coverage. You're not gonna have a good run fit. All these things that happen. How does he handle a bad play? Everybody wants to go out there and make plays, but I mean, and Kevin wants to get AJ Terrell here. I mean, I don't see him being out there long either, but they're asking a lot of young guys to be key contributors on a very young team that most of their veterans are on the offensive line, defensive line, at the quarterback position, and skill positions on offense. So, yeah, I do think that Richie Grant is going to have to go out there and show some toughness, but really show some of that football IQ. Like sometimes what people don't understand about being a safety is sometimes they have to get guys lined up. They have to be nothing cheap, nothing deep, and they got to be really the utility player for defense. I got to be able to come up there and run fit. I got to make sure that I'm the eighth guy in the box. But this is where the rubber meets the road. All that talking can be ceased now. If y'all can see how quiet the locker room is when you're a rookie. I know when my first game as a rookie, we up there in Buffalo, and BJ, I was talking about the trash till we pulled up to the stadium, and then like, "Ben, you all right?" Oh, he ain't got no minutes left, coach. He can't talk. No, because it's here. But I will say this to every player that was just in college a year ago, whether you was the number 1 overall pick in Trevor Lawrence or whether you was Mr. Relevant or whether you undrafted, there is nothing like tonight. And let me tell you this: the likelihood of you forgetting everything you've learned is almost 100%. I'm just telling you, you're not gonna remember anything. They called a play. They said tight end boot left. I'm on the right. I didn't boot left. I didn't do anything. My coach was like, "If we call."
I was going to say, Ben, were you more nervous for preseason game number 1 or actual game number 1 as a rookie?
I was more nervous for preseason game number 1 because what happens is I didn't start right away, so I'm on the sideline, and when you going in, they won't say second team. They'll say true Rook, where you at? And coach do that. Put your hand on each side of your helmet and go. And basically he's saying, you think he's finna say, go have fun out there. He's saying, please don't embarrass me. Like, listen, do you know what you're doing? You get it, and you got to run in there. And that's it. It's all, but it goes like this. And it's something about coming to the stadium, seeing your name on the back of the jersey, putting on your shoulder pads. You go out there in pregame, you looking sweet, talking to certain guys you played against the year before. And everything goes blank, BJ. You don't remember anything. I'm talking about, I remember how to break the huddle, come out the huddle, line up right. All I remember was this: what are you doing? Like, what? You hear this between play. What are you doing? I'm like, I'm supposed to go to the left. No, you're supposed to line up on the right, then go to the left. But at the same time, man, they're rookies. They're not seasoned vets. BJ, Trevor Lawrence will look like a rookie. Like when people go, like outside of the, oh my God, he threw a 5-yard out to Tim Tebow and his third and his 2nd and 5. It's gonna be what Tua did in the national championship. He threw a pass on a run play. Like, dude, what are you doing, Tua? So have fun though. Have fun. They're not gonna be the greatest player in the world season 1. And no matter what you see, good or bad, it is the first game. But that's smelling salt. That's what it's for. It's for the first preseason game. Come on, wake up. Let's go. They out there, and then the coaches say, listen, just because you get paid don't mean you got to come out there. We are going to fine you if you don't come out there. But look, come out there. Your family's out there. But shout out to all those players, man. I mean, I just remember my first one. It's really, it's BJ. It's like SEC media days. It's like it never happened. You know what I'm saying? It's just crazy. Now,
let me ask you this though, because I know you said, I know you said that for veterans, the preseason, you're kind of like, oh, okay, whatever. Let me go out there and do this for a minute. But if you are a rookie, a Trevor Lawrence, a Kyle Pitts, a Richie Grant, or a second-year player like an AJ Terrell, do you view the preseason as a chance to make a statement, make a move, or even if you're a rookie or a second-year player, do you understand that at the end of the day, it's still the preseason?
No, BJ. I think that when you start looking at it as it's just a preseason, you won't be there long. You're not good enough to just go through the motions. So if you AJ Terrell, bigger than just you showing how much you've grown from 1 year to the next, are you taking care of those other DBs? Or are you talking to those other DBs? Because you're going to need them. And if you are Trevor Lawrence, listen, call the play, get out the huddle, execute. Call the play. Get the 2 words 4 words you hear in football all the time is you're gonna hear hurry up and you're gonna hear let's go. Hurry up. Like everything happens like this. I'm surprised it's not more delay of game penalties, but nobody's good enough for that. If you're a veteran, go out there and look like one. If you're a rookie, unfortunately, you're going to look like one. Najee Harris, you know what he got famous for in college? Jumping over people. You know what he was doing yesterday? Trying to jump over people, and it's not working. Like, somebody going to say, Najee, listen, I know you can jump over guys and just keep running. He kept doing that yesterday. Like, a grown man standing straight up, he finna just, I said, not. So you're going to have to get rid of some bad habits. You're going to have to be able to take some tough coaching, but leave your ego and pride at the door, because for those people that say, man, they hit real hard in the NFL. Yep, and they move real fast too. Everything happens like that. So I don't take yourself too serious, but just know what you're doing. Like, no, the one thing I noticed about veterans during the game, preseason or not, they still dress up like it's a business, right? Some of them wear suits. Some of them guys over there going over notes, and they know everything. They're going over notes, personnel groupings, different situations. And I'm over here like this. I mean, I'm over there looking like I'm about to have my first child. I am struggling. I said, look, man, I can't do it. But you look at the other rookies, BJ, and that's what we're doing, right? We're 21, 22 years old. Your family member saying, come on, baby. And they snap the ball. You know why veteran quarterbacks don't play that long in the preseason? Because they probably ain't got their O-line in there. I guarantee you, as soon as Trevor Lawrence, and they go, he got hit, that's it. Get him out. Because it's crazy, BJ. It's the best and worst time of your life. It's the greatest time of your life. But everybody can see you. Everybody, the whole city, NFL Network, Kevin Thomas, BJ Bennett, all that stuff. And then when I go, no, my first preseason game was, you had a lot of flags. Yeah, that ref was hating on me. You know what I'm saying? I'm out there holding people. I was.
Yeah, he did for the tight ends that night. Let's just be real.
No. That's how I realized if I'm wearing a team wearing white, I'm wearing white gloves. That way I'm just blending in with the uniform. But no, don't take it too serious. Have fun, but just know, thank God you're not judged off your first preseason game, because none of these guys would have had an inkling of a career. It's game one. Mistakes are going to happen. Move on, adjust, and try to come out there and count healthy bodies at the end of the game.
And, of course, all eyes will be on Trevor Lawrence there in Jacksonville tomorrow when the Browns and Jags square off in Jacksonville. We'll talk to John Shipley of Jaguar Report on SI when we return. It's 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. It is 3 and Out on this Friday. Kevin, BJ, and Ben, glad you were with us. Preseason football back at it. Jags and Browns tomorrow in Jacksonville. Joining us here on the show from Jaguar Report on SI.com, John Shipley joining us. John, welcome. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
Hey, we're doing fantastic, and I would imagine that regardless of any other thing that's going on, I know Joe Schobert got traded, but it's all about Trevor Lawrence tomorrow, right?
No, that's exactly what it is. And, regardless of really who takes that first snap, with the starting offense, all eyes, from the second that ball is, really a first whistle is blown and the ball is snapped, all eyes are going to be on Trevor Lawrence and what he does. And, whether that's one drive, two drives, three drives, really how he looks, in his first, while it's not an official game, how he looks in his first taste of NFL action compared to the speed of the college game and what he saw at Clemson, that's going to be by far the most important thing this offseason.
And John, going back to the news that Kevin mentioned there about Schobert being traded for a late round draft pick, what was kind of the motivation there? And was that something that was expected, I guess, from media?
Yeah, it was something that to an extent maybe not expected, but you could definitely see Schobert wasn't the guaranteed starter at middle linebacker. Over the last few weeks of training camp, Damian Wilson, the former Chiefs middle linebacker who the Jaguars signed this offseason, he had began to see more and more reps, inside with the starting defense. And it really came down to the fact that Schobert was a bit too similar in skill set to Miles Jack. Obviously he's not the athlete that Jack is, but, he's another guy who he's a sideline to sideline linebacker who's better in coverage than he is coming downhill and playing against a run. He was one of the slower linebackers on the team. And what the Jaguars really wanted was dynamic downhill presence to put next to Jack, a guy who can be that kind of thumper role when you're in the base 3-4 defense. And they really see Wilson as more of that type of player. And considering Schobert doesn't have much special teams value, they were looking at a situation where they would have been paying him, one of the highest linebacker contracts in the league to be a backup this season.
John, is there a real quarterback competition? Obviously, Trevor's going to end up being the guy, but are they really giving Gardner Minshew a real opportunity to go out there and win the starting job?
I don't think so. I think he's getting opportunities to impress. I think he's doing enough to kind of put that pressure a little bit on Lawrence just to make sure that he doesn't get lackadaisical and complacent. And I think he's at least given them confidence in what the offense could look like in the 17-game season at any point in the season if Lawrence does go down. But there's been nothing that suggests to me that there's an actual chance that Lawrence doesn't start when the actual games begin. I really don't think it's an actual competition in terms of the week one starter. And I would be beyond shocked if Lawrence is not the week one starter against the Texans. Just because, even in practice, you can see the difference between the two. Not to say Minshew's practice bad or had a bad camp, because he's had a solid camp. But Lawrence just makes so many more plays. He pushes the ball downfield. He unlocks an element of that offense that Minshew can't. So I think they see Minshew as a high-end number 2 who has the talent to be a starter, but I don't think he starts week 1.
All right, John Shipley joining us at Jaguar Report on SI. Where are the biggest battles happening here in preseason over these next 3 games? Obviously, we just talked about the quarterback, but where are there real battles? I know there's a young team that can change a lot, but where do you see the most intense battles in the preseason for an actual starting job?
Yeah, no, left tackle is going to be a big one. Whether it's going to be Cam Robinson, the 5th-year veteran who they franchise tagged this offseason, who has a lot of starting experience at left tackle. Offensive line coach George Warhouse been with him for the last few seasons, and he's a big supporter of his. But they did draft Walker Little, with the 45th pick in the 2nd round. Walker Little, former number 1 overall recruit, was considered a future top 10 pick during his first 2 years at Stanford before injuries and then the COVID-19 pandemic kind of wiping out the last 2 seasons. But he's a guy who, throughout training camp, has really just looked like one of their best offensive linemen in general. He has shut down guys like Caleb Von Jason, DeJuan Smoot in one-on-ones. He's shown the ability to even play some right tackle and then move them around. So it really seems like he has a chance to push Robinson. And then outside of that, I would say cornerback. They have a lot of different options to start opposite Shaquille Griffin. Whether they want to go with Tyson Campbell or Sidney Jones or, C.J. Henderson is still working his way back into the lineup after really missing most of the first 10 or so practices of training camp. So I think cornerback and left tackle are where you're going to see the competition the most.
The two first-round picks from last year who you mentioned, Chason and Henderson, what are expectations for those players here in 2021?
Well, the expectation for Henderson, entering this training camp was really, okay, they need to see him on the field and be healthy after he was hurt so much last season. But the expectation was that he was one of the most talented, really defenders, and he was going to be a big part of the secondary. But because of being on the COVID-19 list for a good chunk of the first half of training camp, Henderson has only practiced a few times this training camp. He's practiced 4 times, I believe, in 13 practices, and he's practiced the last 3 times. But these are the only days, these 3 practices that he's practiced consecutively. So it's just been a problem getting him on the practice field. So really, until he kind of can carve out a role, whether it's during the preseason or during any of the other training camp practices, and kind of catch up to speed with everybody else that he's been behind, it's hard for me to really say there are high expectations for him, because if they went out and played the Texans today, he wouldn't be a starter on the defense. And as for Chason, he might not, be that dynamic guy across from Josh Allen who's playing every single snap, because it really seems like they like to want Smoot. But he's definitely going to be their starting Sam linebacker in a 3-4, and he's going to be a big part of their rotation off the edge. He's a guy who he's gotten a lot better compared to last training camp, especially in terms of playing the run and putting together counter moves. He's still a guy who you want to see continue to get stronger and get better at finishing. But he's had a strong camp, especially compared to last year, where, last year he struggled throughout training camp. He did not look like a first-round pick on the practice field last year.
John, how exciting are these young receivers? I know you had a guy like Marvin Jones to go along already. You already had DJ Chark and Laviska Shenault, and you had guys like Tavon Austin, different guys to the lineup. But how exciting has it been to watch this wide receiver room really try to be the lead dog for this offense right now?
I think it's important. I really do, because they have so many young receivers, in that room. They have talent. They really do, both at the top and the bottom of the roster. But the thing is, what they've lacked is veteran production. Guys who are really guaranteed to come in there and really do it on a down-to-down basis, on a game-to-game basis. Guys who have proven they can do it consistently. They have high ceilings, and they have guys who have a ton of potential. DJ Chark, Laviska Shenault, and then guys like Tim Jones and Jalen Camp, who are rookies. But they didn't have a leader in that room who has proven he can produce week in and week out. They've had other veterans like Keelan Cole and Chris Conley, but Marvin Jones is just on a different level than them.
Joining us here on SI.com, joining us here on 3 and Out. And John, you look at Urban Meyer. How are you kind of grading Urban Meyer? I know preseason games are supposed to be bland, but how do you kind of evaluate Urban Meyer here in preseason game number 1?
Yeah, I think a big thing is really just seeing how he does with procedural acts of the game. Things like challenges and, the amounts of timeouts he's going to have and the clock management. Those aren't things that he's had to deal with, at the college level. And these are all things that it's going to be a completely new experience for him on all levels. And so I think just seeing how he deals with the acts of game management and the new responsibilities that just come with the things he has to do from the first whistle to the last whistle, I think that's going to be major this preseason. Probably more important than, every new head coach has gotten to deal with that. But even him to a much bigger degree, because, guys like Robert Saleh, he hasn't been a head coach before. He knows how to, work around a 2-minute warning. He knows relatively challenges and et cetera like that. So that's going to be the biggest adjustment, I think, for Meyer.
This preseason, before we even get to the regular season, this preseason, are we going to see a lot of Tim Tebow?
I think so, just because he needs to do really something to prove that he deserves a spot on the roster. The Jaguars have said over that they want the best 53 guys on the roster, and they don't really care, in terms of what that means in terms of numbers at a position. So, that can mean something outlandish like, 7 to 8 offensive linemen or 3 tight ends. If Tebow wants to make this roster, it really seems like they would have to carry 5 tight ends. And I can't envision that being the case. He has not shown to this point to be one of the 53 best players on the roster, because since pads have come on, he has just struggled, bringing in passes consistently, especially against contact. So I think you're going to see a lot of him in the preseason, because you're going to be running with the third team. And I think he's going to need to really impress. So I do believe they're going to give him the chance to do so.
And John, you've had a chance to see Travis Etienne up close. I mean, obviously, what he did at Clemson is unprecedented. Him and Trevor Lawrence, I mean, have been tied to the hip since they've been in college. But what have you seen from him? And obviously, this guy can flat out get it done on the field.
Yeah, no, I've truly been impressed. You know, it at least to me has been everything that he has been billed as and everything that you expect out of a pick, that caliber. For the Jaguars, it was the most monumental draft, of their entire franchise history. And it was for a reason. It was because they've never had the number 1 overall pick. They've never had a chance to bring in that franchise-altering quarterback. And I do believe there was some trepidation among some fans of, is he really going to look the part right away? And at least from my eyes, I do believe he has. He has shown rare arm talent and has made just a couple throws that, it's not saying much considering the quarterbacks I've watched, but in my 3 years on the beat, I've never seen quarterbacks on the team make a handful of the throws he's been able to make.
I know fans are really, really excited, and understandably so, but have you been able to kind of get a sense for what reasonable expectations are here in year 1 of the Meyer, Lawrence, Etienne era?
I think the reasonable expectations are for them to at least be a competitive team. And by that, I mean, they're expecting not to be a team that's on the, really the absolute seller of the AFC South again. They're expecting not to be a team that only wins 3 to 4 to 5 games. But I'm not sure, for all they say that they want to win in the first year of this, that they really are geared up or even expecting to, be contenders or make any kind of run or anything like that. But I do think they expect to compete. I don't think they expect to get their, doors blown off week in and week out like last week. I think they expect every game to kind of be, like a bare knuckle brawl, and for them to really have a chance, and for them to be that kind of pesky team that nobody really wants to play each week. So I think the expectations are for them to at least, have a somewhat successful season in terms of wins and losses, but to look like a team that's on the rise and, has an upward trajectory entering next season.
John Shipley, Jaguar Report on SI, our guest here on 3 and Out. John, really appreciate the time. Thanks so much.
Hey, thank you guys. I appreciate y'all.
Appreciate you coming on and joining us. In the Jags and Browns going to square off in Jacksonville tomorrow night. Preseason game number 1. All eyes going to be certainly there on Trevor Lawrence at quarterback for the Jags, BJ.
And I think the expectations are immense. You're talking about every single throw is going to be overanalyzed. I mean, if he does come in and go, 3 for 4 with a 55-yard touchdown pass, the internet's probably going to break, and you'll see Trevor mania continue to surpass Tebow mania. But listen, even if realistically expectations should be modest, even if realistically it's going to take these young guys time to gel, even if realistically you still have some holes on the roster, there's excitement. There's excitement around the Jaguars. There's optimism around the Jaguars. There are people talking about Jacksonville as being a contending team, maybe not this year, but in the years to come. And I think already you've seen some of the new additions via the draft. Again, guys like Marvin Jones come in and just add to that overall energy, and it's fun to see.
Well, I'm just saying, this is the first time, Kevin, I've heard somebody say anything remotely, rational about Tim Tebow. I know that he's supposed to be the guy. He goes, look, man, this guy has not looked the part. And that's what they say. You realize, listen, football is played with pads. And when the pads come on, certain guys get real quiet. I'm rooting for Tim Tebow. Make no mistake about it, BJ. I know you got your 15, whatever number he's wearing, that number 85 jersey probably stuck in the back of your closet because you don't want to pull it out until the 53-man roster come out. But yeah, BJ, when it comes to Trevor Lawrence, it's going to be real similar. With Vince Young, we played the Saints. Vince Young's first preseason game was the Saints versus the Titans, obviously. And Reggie Bush got the ball, and he went to the left and reversed back to the other way and went by 60 yards, and everybody thought this dude was going to change the game. Just calm down, people. Pump your brakes. It's football. They're not going to reinvent anything, but I am looking forward to seeing them young boys get their first action.
And we've got more to come. We'll talk some Falcons a little bit later in the show. Dave Archer's the Falcons and the Titans coming up tonight, preseason game number 1. We've got more to come here. It's 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Good to have you here on this Friday. Kevin, BJ, and Ben will hear from Dave Archer ahead of tonight's Falcons and Titans preseason game coming up in Atlanta. Kind of ironic. You get the Falcons and Titans as the first kind of game for Arthur Smith there with the Falcons against his old team. So we'll talk about that coming up in just a little bit. But college football, we are 15 days out. 2 weeks from tomorrow, we'll have college football that counts. 3 weeks from tomorrow, we'll have that huge September 4th opening weekend of college football, which Georgia, Clemson, everybody's looking forward to that one as well. But what new coordinator is under the most pressure in 2021 here as we get close to the college football season?
Good question. I think there are a number of candidates, including in the SEC, specifically some high-profile guys. I'm looking at Mike Bobo, I think, at Auburn, because you're talking about a coach along with Derek Mason, coordinators that were brought in by Brian Harsin because they were very accomplished, successful coordinators, but also had familiarity with the SEC and had success in the SEC. And I think Bobo has a unique set of circumstances to work with offensively because it's hard to get a feel for what expectations are for Bo Nix. He's started for 2 seasons. I mean, very rarely do you see a true freshman come in the SEC, start right away. And Ben, you look at his resume, went toe-to-toe with Justin Herbert at Oregon, won, has an Iron Bowl victory on his resume already. He's done some remarkable things, but statistically and proficiently speaking, he took a pretty significant step back last year. So what are your expectations for Bo Nix? And then, I think people are going to expect you to run the football. Bobo was the coordinator at South Carolina last year with Kevin Harris having an incredible season. And now if you're Mike Bobo, you have Tank Bigsby, who a lot of people feel like is the best running back in the country. So are you looking at a scheme where you give Tank Bigsby 25, 28 touches a game and you kind of go old school Auburn? Or is there an expectation that maybe because of the veteran experience you have at quarterback, you need to throw the ball a little more? And of course, you bring in Demetrius Robertson to upgrade the wide receiver position. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see what Mike Bobo can do with Auburn's offense. And keep in mind, when you're at Auburn, what's the standard? Well, the standard is your arch rival right up there to the west in Alabama. So Auburn's going to be measured by what Alabama does, by what LSU does, by what A&M does. You look at some of these offenses, Ole Miss is going to be scoring a lot of points. Mississippi State's going to be scoring a lot of points. So the pressure's on Bobo and Auburn to find a way to be really effective right away.
BJ, even sticking with your scoring a lot of points, I'm going to – I'm gonna stay, even with the the SEC West, and I'm gonna go to Baton Rouge. I think that Durante Jones, the defensive coordinator for LSU, is gonna be under a lot of pressure because this LSU team underwhelmed, but this LSU defense definitely underwhelmed. Teams had their way with them. Obviously, they had a big win last year in the Swamp against my Gators, but it wasn't really nothing. That was a highlight of their season. Eli Ricks and Derek Stingley Jr., those are going to be 2 guys to watch for like the cornerback position. But Durante Jones, even though he's coming from Minnesota, coming from the National Football League, it's LSU. They got to get back to being able to be a dominant defense, not just a good defense. And BJ, LSU might be the biggest unknown in the SEC West. You kind of know what's going on at Texas A&M. Obviously, Auburn is going to be they're going to go as Bo Nix go, but you really don't know what LSU has on defense. Are they going to have athletes? Yes. Do they got the best, arguably the best defensive, not the best defensive back, the best defensive player in the country, Derek Stingley? Yes. But they had these things a year ago, and none of that mattered. They can't use the pandemic. They can't use the NFL draft. They can't use opt-outs as a reason why they underwhelmed. But Durante Jones, see a guy like, you see Ricks, you see obviously Derek Stingley, you see this defense. They got Mike Jones, Ojulari and these guys. They got a chance to go out there and be special. And everybody's a copycat league. The last time the offense put up numbers we've never seen, they had a coordinator that came from the NFL. Well, let's try it again, but let's try it on the defensive side this time because it's not going to be any excuses. LSU cannot underwhelm like they did last year. They kind of got a mulligan, right? Because when everybody thought they was going to be good and then Mississippi State blew the doors off, then it's like everybody take a step back, which kind of like trickle down, had that trickle down effect for the rest of their season. But Durante Jones understands that just like the offensive coordinator position at Alabama might be the most highly sought after coordinator position in college football, the defensive coordinator position at LSU is just as big. So I don't know how many years Durante is going to have because obviously he wants to be a head coach. But yeah, that Durante Jones going to be under a lot of pressure, especially with Derek Stingley Jr., a early Heisman Trophy candidate at the defensive back position. You got a lot to work with.
The pressure mounts early on some of these new coordinators, especially when you're in the SEC and fans want to win yesterday. When you take that job, we've got more to come here on 3 Now, including speaking the countdown to JT Daniels, DJU. They've played before. How did it go? We'll let you know when we come back. It's 3 Now on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Good to have you here, Kevin Thomas, BJ Bennett, Ben Troop, on this Friday. Glad you're making us a part of your day. Counting it down, 3 weeks to go till the big opening of college football, 2 weeks to go until we actually have the first games of the college football season. But a lot of folks looking obviously ahead to the game in Charlotte with Georgia and Clemson. JT Daniels, DJ Uiagalelei. Not the first time, BJ Bennett, they will have met. I know you were doing some backstory research on this, but not the first time these two quarterbacks will have squared off on the football field.
That's right. And got a story up on southernpigskin.com on the two quarterbacks. And, they've really had a paralleled history. And you think about what they did last year, it's remarkable to look at the success they had in limited action. DJ Uiagalelei in his first start, a lot of people forget it. He led Clemson to a win against Boston College, threw for over 300 yards. Then for an encore in one of the biggest games of the year at Notre Dame, he threw for 439 yards. That's the most passing yards against Notre Dame by anybody this millennium. And keep in mind, he did that against a top 5 Notre Dame team on the road. And then you look at JT Daniels, he fell just short of the threshold minimum for passing attempts. But had he had a couple dozen more, he would have finished in the top 10 in passer rating in the country, ahead of guys like Trevor Lawrence. So it was remarkable what they did in limited action. But yes, for all the talk of, man, it's going to be a great showdown between Uiagalelei and Daniels in Charlotte. That's true, but they played before. In high school in the Los Angeles area, they actually played twice when JT Daniels was a senior at Mater Dei, and when DJ Uiagalelei was a sophomore, I believe, at this point in his career at St. John Bosco. And you had JT Daniels win those two games, won a close game in the regular season, and then won the rematch in the semifinals of the state playoffs in California. But you're talking about two quarterbacks with remarkable resumes from high school, because Daniels went on that senior year to win the state championship, and I guess win the and this is kind of voted on. It's not like there's a tournament, but win the national championship. And then Uiagalelei, as a senior, went on to win the state championship at St. John Bosco and win the national championship. So these two quarterbacks from the same area. The game obviously is going to be in Charlotte, so California to Charlotte. Their careers have kind of followed similar tracks. Both guys were exceptional last year. They had history from high school, and Ben, it's really cool, the story, and ahead of this big game, these two guys are the stars, no doubt about it.
When people started asking why JT Daniels, BJ, decided to leave, Southern California when he's, and transfer to Georgia, a lot of that had to do with a guy like DJU. You keep track of those guys around you. You kind of know what those guys around you do, but that's what's going to make the game even more crazy, right? I mean, we started talking about the similarities of these players. You're not going to be as closely, adjoined as you're talking about DJU. And even add to it, didn't Bryce Young, I think, replaced. Bryce Young replaced
Yes. Bryce Young followed up JT Daniels, and a couple of years before DJ Uiagalelei took over, you had Josh Rosen at his high school. So yes, both storied programs.
And and think about that, Kevin and BJ. When you think about how powerful college football is in the South, these boys are from Southern California, skyscrapers, movie stars, and they leave there to go to Tuscaloosa, Athens, and Clemson. Anyway, I just think that, BJ, it adds more intrigue to the game, right? DJU, he's probably been asked that question a bunch. JT Daniels been asked that question a bunch. And BJ, you talk about the debuts. I mean, JT Daniels' debut was about as good as you can get in the SEC against Mississippi State. You talk about DJU, they were winning because of him. They didn't lose the game against Notre Dame because of DJU. The defense just forgot to show up that day. But that's why we watch. That's why if you really start, breaking down the numbers, why these guys are very, 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 very similar in stature, very, very similar in ability. But DJU chose Clemson out the gate, though. JT Daniels happened to be a 5-star recruit that Kirby Smart had on his radar when he decided, getting that transfer portal. One guy's used to being on the big stage. That's DJU, and he played against Notre Dame. JT Daniels finna feel something different when they had a neutral stadium, Bank of America Stadium in Charlotte, North Carolina. BJ, it's going to be fireworks, but that's why you really, really enjoy it. You said this, for Georgia to win it, they got to be able to beat Clemson and potentially Alabama. So JT Daniels going, oh man, I thought I got rid of y'all cats when I got on this plane. No. We've been here. So yeah, I think it's gonna make the game even more impressive. But both guys are very, very impressive. DJU, what, about 6'5", 6'6", 250 pounds. You know, JT Daniels, I mean, you know, the media darling at SEC Media Days. So once again, for Clemson to get back to the promised land or Georgia to get back to the promised land, you're gonna have two young men from Southern California to get you there. Hey man, should be intriguing. But looking forward to the game. But yeah, I mean, BJ, great stuff. Being able to, you know, check out all these different things. I mean, didn't they have something back in the day? Was like I want to say it was like Urban Meyer and Jim Harbaugh. They got some like little crazy little background or something like that as well. But yeah, but you know, but shout out DJU, you know, doing national NIL deals. And JT Daniels, I don't know what JT Daniels got NIL. I know he got something, but hey, should be a great game. But yeah, to know that those guys have got a storied history, let's see who's gonna come out on top when everybody's watching.
And again, everybody going to be watching that one because an early maybe playoff preview of a game, how does it affect either team? If whoever comes out on the losing side, certainly the team on the winning side's got a big early notch in their belt when it's all said and done. But the history of these two quarterbacks goes back a little bit farther than Georgia and Clemson. We encourage you to go to southernpigskin.com, check out that story from BJ Bennett, and you know, find out a little bit more about these two guys. They're going to square off on September the 4th there in Charlotte. We've got so much more to come here on the show. Dave Archer going to join us coming up in the final hour, and we'll talk Falcons and Titans. We'll look at obviously a wild couple of days in sports, the Field of Dreams games last night, which was really awesome. We'll get to that and more coming up as we move throughout the show. Also, Take 3 right around the corner. So plenty of ways to catch us here on the show. Southern Pigskin Radio Network here on the radio, ESPNCoastal.com live audio stream, also on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. And go to our YouTube channel at ESPN Coastal. If you miss the show, you can go there to get an archive version. Also, ESPNCoastal.com, Apple Podcast, Spotify. You can get an archive version of the show, podcasted version each and every day. Hit us up on Twitter at Pigskin Radio. Welcome back, hour 2 here of 3 and Out on this Friday. A lot to get to here on the show, including Major League Baseball. A big win last night. Not for the Braves, but for Major League Baseball in general, a big win last night. We'll also look at some of the top 100 coaches. ESPN put out a list, top 100 coaches of the last 50 years of college football. We'll get to that coming up in just a little bit. But first, let's take 3 here on 3 and Out. Take 1, fellas. We are 15 days away from college football. So in honor of that, Christian put the caveat of outside of Tim Tebow, so you can't say him. Who is the greatest number 15 of all time in college football?
I mean, I think you can make a strong argument for another Dan Mullen quarterback. I think Dak Prescott. When you look at his production, it's really, really amazing, especially when you look at the totality of it. I got some numbers here for you. For Dak Prescott's college career at Mississippi State, he threw for 9,376 yards. That's absurd. He also rushed for over 2,500 yards, 2,521 yards, for a grand total of 11,897 yards. What about scoring? He threw for 70 touchdowns. He ran for 41 more touchdowns. And I didn't even know this until I looked it up. He had 3 touchdown catches, not one like on a trick play. You know, sometimes you'll see one. He had 3. He had 3 touchdown receptions. So you're talking about almost 12,000 total yards. You're talking about 114 total touchdowns. And let us not forget, Dak Prescott had Mississippi State ranked number 1 in the country in the college football playoff poll. So I know, Mullen was the offensive coordinator for Tim Tebow, of course, but I think the Dak Prescott resume is really remarkable. Of course, he's gone on to be a great pro, but you think about his work in college, doing it at a kind of a non-traditional power and setting the standard there at Mississippi State. I'm going to go with Dak and just what he was able to do there in Starkville.
I mean, BJ, Dak is up there. Dak is one of the best to ever do it. I was even looking at his numbers compared to Tim Tebow's, and they really not. Obviously, Tim Tebow got the Heisman's, and Tebow was on a better team. But there's some guys that were number 15 now. Those who don't know. Guys like Zeke Elliott. Rushed for almost 4,000 yards in 3 years. Guys like, Myles Garrett, 47 tackles for a loss, 41 sacks. Tell y'all something though, man. There's a guy by the name of Michael Crabtree. Y'all might want to start putting some respect on his name. Michael Crabtree played wide receiver for 2 years. In 2 years, the number 1 receiver wins this award called the Blitnikoff. He won it both years, back to back. There's also this thing called an All-American. Sometimes you got first team, second team, but when you the best across the board, you get unanimous. He was 2-time unanimous All-American. And most guys, BJ and Kevin, want to have a good year. They want to have, 10 touchdowns, 15 touchdowns in 2 years. He had 231 catches for 3,127 yards. He had 41 touchdowns in 2 years. So when you start looking at the all-time receiver touchdown list in the NCAA, he's like number 11. But he did it in 2 years. So for me, love Tebow is the GOAT. Dak Prescott wore number 15 because of Tim Tebow. Myles Garrett is the truth. Zeke Elliott is the truth. But put their resume up against his. Gonna be a college football Hall of Famer, 2-time Blitnikoff, 2-time unanimous, 2-time everything. When it came to the receiver position, BJ, I know Randy Moss is the GOAT, but for 2 years, number 15, Michael Crabtree.
Ooh. BJ, you're gonna let it go?
Look, I sent it to him in the chat. If he doesn't want to acknowledge it, he doesn't have to acknowledge it.
Oh, well, I gave my great speech. I knew this was gonna happen, right? That's what I get for just glancing and stuff. Well,
I would have let it slide, Ben, if you'd have said he did it for 3 years, because at least that could be like 5 times 3 is 15, and then could have made it work. But
sorry, Mr. Crab. Oh, sorry, but that's
look. Wore 15 in the pros. Yeah. Wore 15 in the pros, but we were doing a Google image search earlier. Wore number 5 in college.
Well, Mr. Crabtree, as you can see, I'm on Well, if that's the case, if I got, because I don't want to mess up what Christian did any more than I've already done. So because of that, I'll go with Mrs. I will go with Mrs. Zeke Elliott. Then almost 4,000 yards, won the Natty. You know what I'm saying? First, All America beat Alabama. Give me Zeke. Sorry, Mr. Crabtree.
I was waiting for BJ for you to jump in.
Hey man, what can I say? We got three sound bites.
Tommy Frazier, Drew Brees, a number of guys wearing 15 there back in the day. All right, moving
Tommy
on.
Frazier. Woo.
Which player are you most excited to see this weekend in the preseason games?
I mean, guys, look, y'all want me to be more creative. I probably should be more creative. But as a Jacksonville Jaguars, follower of the football team, it's Trevor Lawrence. It's Trevor Lawrence. And everybody, all of us, myself included, we're going to overreact to whatever happens, right? I mean, if Trevor comes out, and Ben, I don't know how much he plays, man, but if he comes out and, goes 3 for 3 and, like I said, throws a strike for a touchdown, we're all going to go, oh, my God, I told you. Jaguars are going to win the division. They're going to the playoffs. Trevor's going to make the Pro Bowl. These wide receivers are unstoppable. And if he comes out and maybe, gets sacked or misread or, throws an interception, it's going to be, look, all this talk about Gardner Minshew being right with him in preseason camp, this proves it. Should Gardner Minshew start right away? So whatever happens, that's the nature of being the number 1 overall pick. Everything is blown way out of proportion. Everything is exaggerated. If we're being honest, there's really nothing Trevor Lawrence can do in preseason to kind of change the reality of the fact that he's going to be the starter for the. Even if he throws 2 picks tomorrow night and then throws another pick, he's the number 1 overall pick, and he's Trevor Lawrence, and he's also a rookie, right? I mean, we forget, and I know we're getting into just regular season stuff, but didn't Peyton Manning almost set the interception record his rookie year with the Colts? So if your expectation is Trevor Lawrence is going to complete 78% of his passes with 50 touchdowns and 5 picks, you're going to be disappointed. And I think we probably should be ready to see Trevor struggle a little bit, even in limited preseason action, because Ben, like you were, sharing your intro into the NFL, and even in the preseason, the pressure, the expectations. So I'm excited to see Trevor, but it's not really even to see the throws or the stats, just to see him out there, in a Jaguars uniform.
A guy, BJ, that I thought would have went a lot higher than he went, but I think he might be in the best situation for all the rookie quarterbacks. I want to see Justin Fields. I've heard a lot of good things coming out of Chicago about this young man. He did not drop because of his ability. He dropped because of these unforeseen, situations that be going on behind the scenes with these scouts. And I don't know why, but he might have dropped to the best situation when you talk about that defense, when you talk about a team that's trying to get out of the dark ages and been searching for a quarterback for a long time now. So, yeah, I think I'm really, really looking forward to seeing Justin Fields. But another guy, that I think is under a lot of pressure is going to be Azeez Ojulari. He went second round to the Giants. The Giants were the worst last year getting to the football. They were the worst. And when you talk about a young guy who everybody thought was going to be a first round, no, it's not where you get drafted. It's what happens. It's what happens after you get drafted. And I think if Azeez Ojulari can be the guy they hope to be, I think he got a shot to go out there and really be really, really good. But yeah, Justin Fields my one, but Azeez Ojulari is my one B.
All right, moving along. Take 3. Today is National Left-Handers Day. All those weird left-handers out there. Who is the greatest left-handed college quarterback ever? You had a lot of guys who could really spin it from the wrong side. Just joking. It's not the wrong side.
Okay, yes.
I had to clarify. BJ made a face. I'm like, that's a joke. I love you left-handed people. It's fine.
Some absolute superstars, and we were not allowed to pick him earlier, but doesn't it have to be Tim Tebow? And, I was trying to justify some other guys. What about this guy? But Tim Tebow, 2 national championships. I know one of them was as a reserve, but he still scored in the title game and, had a prominent role on the team. I believe the first sophomore ever to win the Heisman Trophy. I believe you're talking about one of the great statistical resumes with the dual threat production we've ever seen. You think about the post-game press conference against Ole Miss, and we're not going to lose it. And they don't. And they go out and win the national championship. And to me, if you're talking about greatest, you're talking about, wins and what you did on the big stage and, your influence and all of these things. And you mentioned Dak Prescott, wanting to play like Tim Tebow, Ben. I mean, Tim Tebow, I think it has to be him. I think most people, if you were to just ask the question, who's the greatest college quarterback ever? And I don't know this isn't scientifically justified. I'm just guessing. I think most people would say Tim Tebow, but some of these other guys, I mean, Mike Vick, the 99 season, what he did against Florida State in that championship game. You talk about just him kind of revolutionizing the position. You look at Steve Young, if you want to go back, what he did with BYU in the early 80s. Matt Leinart probably won more games than anybody on this list. You talk about Tua even. And Tua, from the standpoint of greatness, not only does he probably have the most, I mean, I'll ask you guys, does he have the most famous throw in college football history? I mean, you're talking about a walk-off 2nd and 27, dart in the national championship game, and he sort of revolutionized Alabama's offense, and they changed to more of a spread attack, and obviously his passer rating records and all like that. So a lot of viable candidates, but I think I have to go Tebow.
I mean, Tebow is the obvious, answer. But BJ, I think it is Michael Vick, because the thing about it is this: you timing is everything, right? You got to have originators. You got to have guys that mean more to the position than just what they're doing on the field. Michael Vick was something we've never seen before. It took the perfect team in the national championship to beat him. And the thing about Michael Vick is you look at how dual threat quarterbacks and guys are being celebrated now. They weren't celebrated when Vick was doing it. It was like, wait a minute, man. It's looking like he's playing backyard football. No, he's the best player on the field. So when you think about what Michael Vick meant to the position, man, and he happened to be arguably the best player in college football that year, and it got validated being the number 1 overall pick. So I would go Michael Vick, because the thing is, Tim Tebow, I don't know if he grew up watching Michael Vick. I don't know if Matt Leinart and all these guys saw. But what I'm saying is, BJ, I'm just saying Tim Tebow is the GOAT. I get that part, right? But we've never seen anything like Vic. Like, you ain't never seen nothing like. Who was this kid that's playing at Virginia Tech? I mean, I had young ladies that at my college asking me, "Ben, y'all play Virginia Tech?" I go, "I hope not," and I don't even play defense. But I just think that BJ, the significance of what he was doing when he was doing it. It's not like now where everybody's doing RPOs. He was the only one doing it. It was 1 versus 11, and you could not stop him. So for me, Tebow is obvious, even though I think Matt Leinart, because he only played in national championships, right? But I think it's Vic, because it's just like the Charlie Ward situation. It's just like the Danny Wolford situation. Just because I'm ahead of my time don't mean these other guys better than me because they won natties. I willed Virginia Tech to the national championship, and it took Florida State to beat me. So I'm going with Vic.
Y'all are all being real disrespectful right now. How many of those guys have Lefty in their nickname?
I mean, who
Lefty, Jared Lorenzen. Conversation over.
As the greatest left-handed quarterback?
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Okay.
He was a great player. It's a great player.
May Jared Lorenzen rest in peace. Had a chance to play against him, a couple of years when he was at Kentucky. Listen, and I will say this: when you talk about a guy that Jared Lorenzen believed in one thing: do not throw the ball away. I can make a play, even if the guy I'm throwing to is not wearing my jersey. I'm gonna throw that thing. So that last pick against Kentucky my senior year, that's the only way we win that game. So Jared, may you rest in peace, sir. You will be missed, but I appreciate that INT, sir.
Ben, what about a guy you played against? What about David Green?
Oh my God, we being so disrespectful to David Green, man. Listen, shout out to the homie David Green, man, for getting that big win against the Florida boys in high school and taking that L against some Florida boys in college. But yeah, David Green's that dude. David Green's that dude. Left-handed quarterbacks, man, that's fire. You do got to get used to catching it, because I know Kevin was making a joke, but it is weird, man. I mean, to see that thing going like this, it is weird. I'm not gonna lie. I caught Chris Sims when I was with Tampa Bay. I used to, he was a lefty, and that catching that left-handed pass, it is weird. That velocity is a little bit different. So don't get it. So when people talking about Tua be firing that thing, them left-handers, boy, they got cannon.
It's okay to say it's different. It's weird.
It is weird. It is weird. I mean, when Kevin said it, I'm like, no, it is. And the thing is, you don't realize. I'm like, when he threw it to him, I'm looking at him like, what's wrong with this football? It's crazy, but it is. But hey, man, lefties, man. BJ said Steve Young. BJ taking it back. So, yeah, man.
National left-handed.
I still think Jared Lorenzen, Matt Leinart, Tim Tebow, but Michael Vick is that dude to me.
There's no wrong answer there. No wrong answer there. All very quality candidates in their own right. That's Take 3. We do it each and every day. This time we'll come back. More to come. Who are some of the top college football coaches ever? List pretty easy, you would think. But where do some of the top guys rank on the all-time list? We'll get to that next. It's 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Good to have you here, 3 and Out, Southern Pigskin Radio Network, Kevin, BJ, and Ben, ESPN. Great conversation piece here for them to put that out a couple weeks before they started the college football season. Who are the top 100 coaches of the last 50 years? And obviously you start thinking back and you would say, the Bear Bryants, the Tom Osbornes. We've been talking a lot about Bobby Bowden this week. And you would think, that list is probably pretty concise, pretty tight of some guys. And then you see number 1 is Nick Saban. And now people go, oh gosh, Alabama. But BJ, you and I were talking off the air here. 6 or 7 years ago, that would have been a kind of unthought of conversation. Like we think of it now, Nick Saban's the GOAT. He wins all time top. Like a few years ago, people were like, can he beat Bear Bryant? Is it physically possible in today's climate where 85 scholarships, everybody's getting TV exposure, everybody's doing that. We're adding, playoff games here in the future, blah, blah, blah. Is there's just going to be no way. And well, he surpassed Bear Bryant and seemingly done, I hate to say it with ease because that kind of seems like you discredit what he and everybody else, but it's like he's past Bear Bryant. But you think just a handful of years ago to think that Nick Saban would be ahead of Bear Bryant might have been a ludicrous argument.
Yeah, I mean, just like Ben, I have very vivid memories from SEC media days. And, one of my early memories, I remember being at lunch with, a couple of, veteran sports writers. And this was, a number of years ago. And we were talking about this. We were talking about, Nick Saban, this guy's doing crazy stuff. I mean, he's coming in right away, winning national championships. He obviously had the national championship at LSU as well. And at first, when you went to these kind of, SEC events, they were kind of whispers. And somebody would write a column like, could Bear Bryant possibly be challenged by Nick Saban in terms of his legacy? And a lot of the initial responses were, no, we appreciate you bringing it up, but no. And then, a couple of years later, it was, man, this is actually kind of close. Like, might we one day get to a point where you say Nick Saban is a better coach than Bear Bryant? And most of the responses were still, no, it's not going to happen. Now at SEC Media Days or when you're talking with your buddies or whatever, it's kind of hard to make an argument for Bear Bryant. Like, it's Nick Saban, and Nick Saban is still going, and he's going to be going for at least 7-8 more years. And I mean, he's at least going to be one of the favorites to win the national championship more years than not in that span. And I think also when you see a list that has Nick Saban 1, Bear Bryant 2, it only reinforces how incredible Nick Saban's success has been at Alabama, because he's done it, in the shadow of Bear Bryant. He's done it with those expectations where if Alabama goes 10-2, what are people going to say? Well, that's a down year. He's lost it. I mean, we all know Alabama loses one game. They lose the Iron Bowl. Nick's got to be on the hot seat now. So he's been able to have this all-time, essentially unparalleled success, been without exception, while being constantly compared to Bear Bryant, who has a resume beyond compare himself. It's just absolutely remarkable to think about Nick Saban's success.
What makes Nick Saban number 1 to me is not just what he's doing at Alabama, is what he got started at LSU. He even came back and said that, my biggest regret was leaving LSU. LSU has had 3 different coaches win national championships at LSU. Well, who got it started at LSU? It's something that Kevin's saying, and I agree with it. LSU didn't have no history before Nick Saban got there. And now look at what they've been able to sustain since he's left. 2 different head coaches since he's been there has won national championship, but one of them in 2019 having arguably one of the best teams of all time. But you know my problem with this list, right, BJ, Kevin?
No, Steve.
Now hold on for a second. Now, because Dabo Swinney, right? One of the best at it right now. But Dabo filled in with a Bowden, that being Tommy Bowden. It's not like Clemson wasn't playing well; they just wasn't playing to the level that they are now. But this is the reason why I have a problem with Steve Spurrier not being in the top 10. Right? I'm just saying, forget the SEC for a second, because that's there. Right? He was in the ACC first. He was 2-time ACC Coach of the Year. He won an ACC championship at Duke. Listen to me, people. Listen to me. How many ACC championships has Duke been in since?
Hold on now. Duke played Florida State in the 2013 ACC title game.
One.
Right? They've been in 1. Okay. So the guy that took them there and won it doesn't even get acknowledged on this list. And BJ, once again, we start talking about Forget what he did at Florida for a second. South Carolina going 11-2, 11-2, 11-2. I'm just saying you're doing it at different programs. You're not going to always get the national. South Carolina's not winning no national championship.
Well, and Spurrier obviously was an offensive innovator. You're talking about revolutionizing kind of the scheme. But I wanted to bring this up about Bobby Bowden, who we were talking about, obviously the late Bobby Bowden earlier this week. Right now we have a 4-team playoff, of course. The top 4 teams every year get in. And I think people forget from 1987 to 2000, Florida State finished in the top 4 every season, 87, 88, all the way through 2000, every single year. And I know Bobby lost a couple of national title games. He won, in 93, 99, lost to Florida, lost to Oklahoma, lost a couple of national titles. But had the 4-team playoff been instituted then, I mean, Kevin, he would have made the playoff for 14 straight years. So I think that's something you have to think about with Bobby Bowden, is that theoretically, had this model been in place then, Florida State would have made 14 straight college football playoffs.
Bobby Bowden could easily be number 1 on this list for the simple reason that he's the only one on this. Well, not the only, but he's the guy on this list that took a program that they didn't have one. Florida State didn't have football, and he brought it there. And look at what he took it to. 14 straight years and top 5, BJ, is probably. I mean, because I'm not gonna do the old guy thing. I'm not gonna say back when I played it. No, competition was good then, just like it's good now. But he's still building a program. Everything about Florida State's football history I know Jimbo won a natty, but it's attached to Bobby. Bobby built up the program to it. Even when he left, look at what Jimbo was able to do. That's why I'm saying now the Urban Meyer one is interesting because Urban Meyer has been successful everywhere he's been. Like every single place he's been, he's taken it to another level. But Urban Meyer still, to me, shouldn't be over Steve Spurrier. I'm sorry. Just because you got more national championships than another dude doesn't necessarily mean you are a better coach than him. The infrastructure was already built. You know how I know? Because Will Muschamp and Jim McElwain, they did everything they can to tear it down. And them some reinforced bricks down there in Gainesville. But yeah, BJ, I mean, the thing about Bobby Bowden's his impact on the game, to me, is probably why I wouldn't mind if he was number 1. Because once again, Nick Saban wasn't afraid to go to Alabama and say, man, I want to supersede Bear Bryant, but they already had Bear. Jimbo Fisher won a national championship at Florida State, but like I said, building the program from scratch, I mean, and to have 40 years at one place, that's crazy. But yeah, the list is the list. I wish Steve Spurrier would have been in the top 10, but hey, man, you got some great guys on.
I do think that is an interesting omission from the top 10, especially like you said, Dabo Swinney up there. I do think the totality of Spurrier's work at 3 different places would warrant, because again, you've won at what turned out to be a huge power school. You've won at a school with virtually no football history, and you won at a school that virtually doesn't care about football. Right? I mean, they care more about it. So you've done it, 3 different places to get it done. But you look at guys, I mean, Bill Snyder, number 8. I like Bill Snyder, but you look at him, it's like, I get why he's on there. Won a lot of games in Manhattan, Kansas, and I think it's pretty proof positive, BJ. Bill Snyder leaves. Kansas State immediately goes down to like a 2-win team. They bring Bill Snyder back, and they're right back in the bowl games again. It's just that quick, the way it turned around. So, yeah, I understand some of them being on there. I'm kind of surprised. I mean, you could make a case, BJ. I know Urban Meyer at Ohio State, but Spurrier and Meyer should be a little closer together on this list. Surprised that he is not in the top 10, as I said. But, Barry Switzer, these are all guys that have done great things. Tom Osborne, I think at the top with Saban, Bear, Bobby, and Osborne. To me,
no. Osborne. See, you mentioned Snyder. To me, Osborne and when Nebraska was really at kind of their all-time peak, I was probably 10 or 11 years old. And you think about, Tommy Frazier, who you mentioned earlier. He was one of the first college football players I watched where I went, that guy's a superstar. That guy makes me want to watch college football. And Tommy Frazier in Nebraska, I mean, you think about Tom Osborne, I think there was a time with that program where the expectation, the thought was, they're going to dominate college football forever. And when Tom Osborne moves on, I mean, Nebraska probably hasn't been a consistent national contender since then.
Well, in the immediate aftermath, they were, but that wasn't good enough as well. And, since then they have gone the Bo Pelini route and things like that, and it has not been the same. But yeah, I understand. But to me, if I'm making this list, BJ Ben, the top 4 guys to me, clearly, that's probably the easiest 4 guys you could put on that list. Then you get into the Urban Meyers, maybe the Steve Spurriers, Barry Switzers, guys like that of the college football world.
No, this list is supposed to be hard. I mean, and when you start thinking about, I look at the top coaches a little bit different. I mean, I know the bottom line is the bottom line, right? I'm not taking that away, but what type of circumstances were they up against? What type of recruiting and type of things were they up against? But Nick Saban being number 1 to me is because he's did it at multiple places, and he's failed as well. Like, I failed I wasn't as good of a coach at Michigan State as I was at LSU. Then I leave and go to the NFL and realize that the NFL is all based upon BJ. If starting pitching wins you games in the postseasons, quarterback play wins you games in the NFL. He lost out of the Drew Brees sweepstakes. So yeah, Nick Saban is doing it, and he's doing it at a high level in the SEC West, the hardest division in conference in college football. And look who he has to do it against. I mean, he's lost to LSU, lost to Clemson, lost to Ohio State. But the thing about it is he knows in order to be the best coach, you got to beat the best coach. And it's hard to beat this dude. So yeah, Nick Saban being number 1, Bear Bryant his. But this list is supposed to be very, very difficult. But if Bobby Bowden was number 1, I would not be surprised because, like you said, BJ, Bobby Bowden made you think more of just the wins and losses, which he did, the national championships, which he did. But I built this thing from nothing, and look at what it is now. So I'll have no problem with Bobby Bowden being number 1. But yeah, but because it's old St. Nick, yeah, they got it right.
We'll got more to come here on 3 and Out. A great night for Major League Baseball. Yes, Major League Baseball did something well last night. We'll get to that when we return. It's 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Welcome back. Kevin, BJ, and Ben here on this Friday. Major League Baseball got something right last night, fellas. In the Field of Dreams game that took place last night in Iowa. I was reading some recaps. Most watched baseball game in 15 years was that game last night. Obviously a big play. It was a play directly off of Kevin Costner movie, Field of Dreams, which they actually, if you didn't watch it, built the field right behind the actual field they used in the movie with the farmhouse and all that right there in the background. The throwback jerseys, the 1919 Chicago White Sox jerseys, beautiful. Loved every minute of it. It actually entered the field through the corn like they did in the movie to get out there to the field. Unbelievable. And then you had a walk-off, or as they are calling it now, a stalk-off home run hit into the Iowa night to end the baseball game. Unbelievable. Positive reviews. MLB got it right, did something right. Apparently, they're going to do it again next year, but got a lot of rave reviews from a lot of baseball fans who, whether you like the movie or not, thought it was really cool, really different kind of setting for a baseball game.
All right, full disclosure, and we went over this in the show meeting. I have not seen the movie in its totality. I've seen like parts of it. I think I saw a little bit of it, and then when I was, maybe in college, and then I don't know, didn't finish it. But to have that scene, that setup, that basically recreation, and then to have that finish, Kevin, with the Judge home run, the Anderson home run. I mean, that's incredible. That's magical stuff. And yes, it's all anyone was talking about. When you look at last night and the sports media coverage and just kind of the excitement around what was, and then a lot of times when you have kind of a non-traditional event and it's really hyped up, sometimes it disappoints, right? For whatever reason, the product is not matching of the hype or the anticipation. I do not think that was the case last night. I think a lot of people were talking about it beforehand, and even more people were talking about it during it, after it. So Ben, I don't know if you've seen the whole. I think you and I have not seen the whole movie. Kevin was having to update us throughout the show meeting, but just really special and really cool.
I mean, Kevin did kind of fill me in, but this is what I did last night with. I mean, this is what I saw, Kevin. I saw everybody going, Aaron Judge. Aaron Judge is out there doing Aaron Judge things. And then, the evil empire was no more. It was over. And I think they said the Yankees are the first team to ever lose a professional baseball game in Iowa. I think they said, people just want to pile on. But no, Kevin, I mean, it kind of, the late game heroics, top of the ninth, bottom of the ninth, everything going on. Kevin Costner walking out of the cornfield. Some of the guys out there, some of the people out there trying to eat some of the corn. No, I mean, to me, that's what sports is about, right? Being able to take things that that had cultural significance, or and make it real. So look, the Yankees, you knew the Yankees was going to be a part of it, and so the Yankees were going to be playing somebody, and you got to you're going to bring the Field of Dreams to life. But it was a lot of debates yesterday about I want Kevin Costner to do my voiceover in my dude. Kevin Costner don't know you. He's not going to do a voiceover. It was all kind of crazy stuff going on Twitter last night, but the late game heroics made it what it was, Kevin. Kevin, you the Field of Dreams guy, you the baseball guy. How do you rank it? Because I know you was thinking, I just don't want it to be cheesy, but with everything from the setup to the game, did it live up to expectations?
And again, I think that's one of those things where we get so carried away about, it's the game day experience. And I know this is different, but everything about that was really cool. From them, the way they entered, paying kind of homage to the movie. Kevin Costner out there obviously made it cool, but just playing at the site where the movie was largely made was a big deal. You only had 8,000 fans there, so that was kind of cool. You had an old school scoreboard in outfield where guys were wearing the wool pants and the suspenders and the hat, and they were actually, when they changed the score, would go up on what was obviously fake, but it looked like an old wooden scoreboard. And they would hang the runs up kind of old school style and keep track of the scoreboard manually. Just stuff like that was really cool. And it goes, at least for me, it went to show that you can still put on a big time event in 2020 without all the sideshow stuff, without all the, bright banner ribbons going on, the 10,000. I know they had a sound system, but all that kind of stuff going on and put on a show. And they were able to do that last night. I thought it was really cool. And it's something I think baseball captured the essence of their sport a little bit. I mean, people talked about, could football do something like this? I don't know. I mean, we talked about it a few weeks ago. You're talking about the longest yard game. I mean, maybe. I know the NHL does the game outside every year. That's kind of unique and to its own. I don't really know what the NBA could do to kind of do. We had so many games about basketball. I mean, unless you somehow incorporate Space Jam and live action Looney Tunes, I don't really know. But I mean, most of the basketball movies that have been made take place like in Madison Square Garden or, something like that. I know you could have maybe like the Hoosiers game in at Butler, but I think for what it was last night, baseball, and give the guys at Fox a lot of credit, really captured what the night was all about. And you could see kids playing on the field, the original field from the movie, while the big league game is going on. It was really, really neat. And it was simple. It wasn't, you didn't need, Aerosmith or, somebody playing. You didn't need Katy Perry playing before the game to make it a big deal. You just put on the game and kind of encompass what the movie is all about. And I thought that was awesome, man. As somebody who loves baseball, it didn't have to be overdone to still be a cool thing. And obviously a lot of people thought so. Most watched baseball game in 15 years. This kind of speaks for itself and, why you love sports and what it can do. And I'm sure the dramatics of the baseball game obviously helped, but just the environment it was played in, it was all really, really cool. And so, the kind of spin on the movie, Kevin Costner comes walking out, they're playing the song from the movie, and then boom, out come the White Sox out of the corn. It says like, dude, that is awesome. Like, I don't know how else you could create that same feeling in like another sport. You just don't have kind of those iconic movies, but I thought it was also cool. You played a MLB. It's all about market size to get people to pay attention. They had more people in the stands last night at that game than live in the town that game was played in. More people were in the stands than the entire population of the town that game was played in. Iowa doesn't have Major League Baseball. I think kind of shown a spotlight on Major League Baseball's problem as well. It's like, oh, it's Iowa. Iowa is like around the Cubs. You got Cleveland. They're right around a lot of these Major League Baseball teams, I think, and they're blacked out because they're, quote, local markets. So you're like, somebody did the math. A third of the games in Iowa you can't watch because of local TV blackouts, and you have no team in your state. Major League Baseball, do better. Do better. How are you blacking out games in a state that has no Major League Baseball? They should watch all the baseball they want to. So I think that was also a really cool thing that kind of brought out was like, hey, look at the love people are getting for Iowa. You're getting $3,000 a ticket to watch a game in Iowa, but they can't watch a third of the Major League Baseball. I mean, it's crazy. So it was a beautiful thing, man. And as a baseball fan, I really liked that. I know we were supposed to kind of incorporate like the movie aspect of it here in this segment, because Kevin Costner ends up playing catch with his dad. And for a lot of folks, that's a really touching moment where it's like, hey, his dad had passed on. He comes back in the movie. And one of the biggest, Americana father-son things is, hey, let's throw the football, let's throw the baseball. And he does that with his dad at the end of the movie, kind of a tear-jerking kind of moment. So I think they did a great job with it all last night. I guess we're done. Everybody's left.
I'm just saying.
I'm saying, man, you broke it down.
I don't want Kevin to get off this soapbox. No, Kevin was like, look, I like the fact that, basically for the listeners, basically Kevin's saying, look, you're gonna take one of my favorite movies of all time and you're gonna bring it to real life. Don't give me the theatrics. Kevin Costner, cool. Walking out the cornfield, cool. But basically, if Aerosmith would have started playing, that go 2020.
You just take stuff over the top. When I think a lot of times as fans, we're very simplistic. I mean, they were talking about last night. John Smoltz was like, you look at the game in the field and you go, and John Smoltz was telling it beautifully. I remember the field I played baseball on as a kid. And that it was just a couple of rickety stands and a field, and we're out there playing. And that's you had no outfield seating. It was all corn stalks, very limited fans. And he's like, it kind of takes you back to when you played, when it wasn't all about let's cram 40,000 people in here and get, pump the speakers up to 11 and get loud and all that kind of stuff. It was just, to me, a very cool thing that brought things back. I mean, it would be like if NFL did a game, like, I don't know maybe like a Pop Warner game or something where it's like, hey, they kind of do it with the Hall of Fame. That's not a game that counts, but like a Pop Warner game where you go to kind of a small stadium and just do some things that you would do when you were coming up playing high school football. I think that the players would love something like that. Obviously, you can't put 80,000, so it might be, but I think fans could wrap their arms around something like that. And it seems like baseball fans casual baseball fans, people who loved the movie, didn't like the movie, could appreciate the moment for what it was. And by all accounts, Major League Baseball hit it out of the park. Pretty good for a sport whose commissioner said you play for a hunk of metal at the end of the year 2 years ago. Pretty good for a sport who's putting little league rules in Major League Baseball games. I thought they had, again, for as much as we criticized them, I thought the concept of the game and the way it was executed, the way it was presented, A+. And one of the things I think Major League Baseball has gotten right when they get criticized all the time, again, whether you agree with it or not, Major League Baseball criticized for taking the All-Star game to Denver and not leaving it in Atlanta this year. Criticized for a number of things. I think last night was about tying in a movie, whether you like it or not, to the game of baseball. And kind of the essence of the movie is baseball at its purest form. Not for the fans. It's just playing the game. And then at the end, guy playing catch with his dad. Beautiful. Well put together by Major League Baseball. A+ in my book, by the way they pulled it off last night. We got to step aside. We got more to come. It's 3 and Out, Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Welcome back. It's 3 and Out here on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Kevin, BJ, and Ben. Speaking of baseball, Braves and Nationals tonight, and into the weekend. BJ and Ben, as they are, after last night, I believe, not in first place anymore, but again, have been playing much better baseball as of late. Got to go in against a couple of teams here the next 5-6 days. Washington, the Marlins. Washington, of course, with the big sell-off. Marlins are in last place. Got to have a good run here while you see the teams that are around you, Mets and Phillies, see their strength of schedule ramp up here.
Well, and Charlie Morton goes tonight. I know Kyle Muller had a rough go of it last night, but Charlie Morton, the veteran who's been fantastic on the mound tonight, I think that's something to feel good about.
Braves, please don't start with me. You already know what I'm gonna say. Don't do this to me. BJ, every time they lose the way they lose, I think market correction. So hopefully they've got it out the way. They can get back
Get
to
that out of your brain. You've been listening to BJ. We'll come back. Final hour, 3 and Out, Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Final hour of 3 and Out here on this Friday. Kevin, BJ, and Ben, glad you're making us a part of your day. College football, 15 days. Count them. 15 days till college football. 2 weeks from tomorrow, we'll have college football that counts. 3 weeks from tomorrow, we'll have kind of that big grand opening of college football 2021. A lot of news and notes happening. I know out of Florida, Jaden Hill tore his ACL and is done for the year. BJ and Ben, a big loss for the Florida Gators before you even get to game number 1.
And you hate to see that. I mean, Ben, you're talking about a very talented young man and a player that was going to be a big part of a very talented Florida secondary. A team that I think is going to exceed expectations. That defense, a big reason why. So you hate to see injuries like that. You wish the young man nothing but the best moving forward. And it's always, tough to see those injuries in preseason camp.
Yeah, I was really, really looking forward to him, being matched up, on the other side of Kyrie Elam. But Ty Graham's going to have to go out there. I mean, no excuses, regardless of who's going to be out there come first game of the season. It's not going to matter. You're going to have to get that defense going, BJ and Kevin. But, yeah, I mean, you hate to see ACLs, guys out for it. The thing about the preseason is all about counting healthy bodies for the regular season. And I think it was a non-contact injury. I don't even think he was making the contact with anybody, which makes it even worse for him. But, yeah, man, ACLs is always going to be the biggest injury when it comes to football players starting and stopping your knees. Sometimes, man, it just can, taking all it can take. But, you do hope for a speedy recovery for him as well.
Also, the Pac-12 saying it has reverted to its standard policy regarding game forfeitures in all sports for the 2021 season and will count any games a team is unable to play as a forfeit loss, which is pretty much standard what we heard from Greg Sankey there at SEC Media Days. The ACC has come out and basically said the same thing. Look, if you can't play, we're not going to reschedule. You're going to take a loss. So as the Pac-12 kind of falling in line, I guess, with what a lot of other conferences have said, look, for whatever reason, COVID or what have you, obviously that's the predominant reason right now. If you can't play, it's just a loss. We're not going to reschedule and try to work around and make sure everybody gets their games in. Well,
and I think that's the consensus, like you said. Whereas, in the past you had just wide-ranging scenarios from, rescheduling of games to complete canceling of games, trying to, play some, not worrying about others. I think that's going to be the consensus you see this fall.
It's going to put a lot of pressure on these young people to make sure that, their circle is going to be very, very limited, very, very small, and even their family members. I know that it's about trying to have the full college experience, but but BJ and Kevin, something that Brad Johnson told us about his son Max. I mean, when you think about the fact that he said, listen, he got to college in January and hasn't been home since. It's not going to be like that in 2021. But as far as like trying to make sure your circle is small, to make sure that we got enough healthy bodies to make it to the game, to try to keep them forward in the game, that's going to put even more pressure on these young men to go out there and try to do the best they can away from football.
Certainly. And again, another news and notes tidbit that came out yesterday. BJ, a lot of folks saw this on social media and interested to get you guys' thoughts on how it changes the NIL game. But the BYU athletic department, again, you say, how can they do that? Well, Georgia has laws. Alabama had laws. I think Utah's one that didn't pass laws and just it came into like, hey, you could do it. It is what it is. But BYU helped broker opportunities for every walk-on member of the football team to sign endorsement deals with a sponsor that would cover the cost of their tuition for at least 1 year. If you saw it on social media, they called up one of the walk-ons. They're like, hey, you've done a great job, hard worker. And now they had the company up there, representative saying, look, you are employee number 1 and your tuition is covered. Everybody goes nuts. They bring another kid up there. They're like, you're employee number 2. Your tuition is covered. They bring the rest of the walk-ons up. They're like, all y'all are employees, all 36 of you, your tuition is covered. Really cool thing that took place there. It is possible, obviously, because of the rule that allowed college athletes to make money for their names, image, likeness, and it did it during a team meeting, which means all 123 members of the Cougar football program have an endorsement deal because kids that are already on scholarship can get $1,000 each. And the walk-ons are effectively under scholarship. It's just not an athletic scholarship. It's a privately funded scholarship, essentially, where they get paid, and then that money they just pay the school for their tuition. But they don't have to. They can keep it and figure out how to pay for school another way. But that was a deal that was done. So essentially, you've got every member of the football team on scholarship there at BYU. How do you think a deal like that ripples across college athletics and college college sports where essentially you could circumvent, the scholarship limits of these sports. And you say, well, what's the big deal? Well, a sport like baseball, you only get 11 scholarships for 25 guys or more. If you could get an endorsement deal that gives all your baseball guys scholarship, you don't think that helps in recruiting potentially to have a, quote, walk-on guy who's not on full scholarship, he's getting paid? How do you think this reverberates across the college landscape after BYU put this deal together?
I think it's a great thing that you have student athletes who are putting in an immense amount of work. Ben, I know you've talked a lot about, hey, the walk-ons are doing the same thing everybody else is doing, and now they have that opportunity to have their financial debt or whatever they have to pay, covered to the school. I think it's a great thing, and I don't see it as this kind of widespread concern that a lot of people do because of a couple of things. First and foremost, the players don't have to spend the money on the scholarship. The money is equivalent to the scholarship cost, but they can use it to go buy, a couple of PlayStation 5s or whatever they want to do. So if you're going to have a problem with that, are we now going to follow where all the money's spent? I mean, are we now going to look at student athletes when they get NIL deals and go, well, you can spend money on this, but you can't spend money on that? I think that's a little troubling. And then I also think with football, and we were talking about this earlier, I think that the limits of the depth chart and playing time are going to self-control, are going to handle the fear that I guess people have of, well, what if Team X ends up having 125 players that are essentially 125 players that have the credentials of a traditional scholarship player? And my only response to that would be, I don't think that because the example you see and you hear is, well, let's say, and we'll just use Alabama because they're the best program in the country. And I've seen a lot of people mention it on social media. Well, let's say Alabama only has 85 scholarships, but they want to recruit yet another 5-star quarterback. And they offer him a NIL deal that is basically comparable to the scholarship cost. Well, that player is not going to come to Alabama because they're not going to play. You can only play so many players. You can only play so many repetitions. And what we've seen is that line of demarcation is about at 85 because not even the last, 10, 15 scholarship players at a school even play. And you see a lot of transfers because of that. You see a lot of transfers because somebody was a highly regarded recruit, and this happens, nothing wrong with it. And you go to school X and the playing time's not what you wanted because, again, you can only play so many people. It's not like you can have unlimited repetitions and unlimited starts and you can play 30 quarterbacks in a week. You can't do that. At a school like Alabama, you have one quarterback. At a school like Alabama, you have 2 or 3 running backs. At a school like Alabama, you have 7 or 8 wide receivers, and that's who plays. There isn't room for other players to play. So I don't think there's going to be this dramatic pull to have, the 114th player on the roster basically be treated as a scholarship player because there won't be the opportunities there that the, I guess, recruited scholarship players have. You can only play so many guys. So I think it's a great thing to make college affordable, make the experience as manageable as possible for as many student athletes as possible.
Yeah, but BJ, I think too often at times, though, the one thing about the college football experience or the college experience that we don't understand is everybody's not there for the same reasons. Everybody don't want to go pro. Everybody knows they're not going to go pro. You get a chance to say, I got a chance to play at a major college or university, and I went there for free. If you are a walk-on, I'm going to say this. Nobody has a harder schedule than a walk-on because a lot of these guys, some of them got jobs. Some of them leave school and go to work. So if you're telling me, wait a minute, I can just get my college paid for free and I still get to do whatever the team does, yes. And what this company is really doing, Kevin, they're really showing how much nonsense is going on when you talk about NIL. You see how they just said, look, we could give them all one. What do you mean? I mean, it's about building relationships with these colleges and universities. Like when you start seeing this big-time brand is sponsor, this big-time brand is sponsor that, who get left out? The smaller brands that want to be affiliated with these teams. So if I go knock on Coach door and go, Coach, hey, how many walk-ons you got? Why? Because I always see the video of 1 or 2 walk-ons getting scholarships when the other 30 or 40 clapping, and they want to be those 2 guys. This is the way you want to know how to even the playing field. And walk-ons know, man, if I go to BYU, I could potentially get a scout. Man, they finna be jumping to go to BYU because only 11 play on each side. I get that part. The goal, your college experience, you ask any student, forget athlete, what you want to come out of college with? No debt. I guarantee you every last one of them going to say that. And the fact that you get a chance to have no debt, that's a college experience. That's woohoo, leveling, going crazy. So that's what I really saw yesterday. It's bigger than, hey, man, I don't want to come give – it's great that certain guys get scholarships, but no one guy works harder than the next. I don't care who you are. Just this guy's the first guy in, last guy out. Okay, well, you know why that guy's the first guy out? Yeah, he's on his way to work. What? Yeah. He can't go to training table because he got to be able to pay for his room and board and tuition and books. So I think that's what I like about NIL. I told you, BJ, there are companies out there, and Kevin, they understand what it really is. This is what college, because a lot of those people went to college and said, man, you know what I wish? What? I don't know, Sally Mae or whoever you call them. I don't know where you live. They're going to find you. So that's what I think about NIL. It's great that you got the DJUs and Vieira Kings, but forget the 85. It's those other 40 that you need to worry about. I like what I saw yesterday, and hopefully other companies start realizing, I told you, it don't got to be hundreds of thousands of dollars. Give them something meaningful and watch what they do for you. So, yeah, yesterday was beautiful to watch.
Again, I'm interested to see how that works, as you said, because now a company has essentially aligned itself with BYU, I guess, for products, which I would imagine they would get reimbursed for by the school. So it's kind of a cycle there. But again, how many schools have those relationships, BJ, where you could essentially guarantee, not even just in football, but the other sports that don't have enough scholarships to even cover the roster of guys that play or girls that play, who potentially say, is there a partnership we can work out where we essentially sponsor athletes, you buy our products, thus we're making money back, your athletes are taken care of, and essentially baseball guys, you're crying about 11 scholarships, don't worry about it. You can essentially have your entire roster on scholarship, which nobody gets to do right now in the baseball ranks, or softball, or a sport like soccer where you don't have enough scholarships to cover the whole team. And these are people that are starting and playing that may not be on full scholarship as well. So I think that deal is interesting, maybe not as much for football, BJ, but when you get into some of the sports where you have, say, less scholarships than there are roster spots, and guys are getting, because people don't realize this. Guys that Mississippi State won the College World Series, they only had 11 scholarships. They divvied up amongst that whole team. There may only be 2 guys on full scholarship on that entire roster. You don't think there's a company that could go to Mississippi State and say, look, you want to be the only school in the SEC that can cover all your guys? I think that's a game changer, what BYU is able to pull off.
But I think you're talking about if the end result of the changing of the game is more student athletes get to go to college and have their expenses covered. I think that's a good thing. I think, and again, you don't have to take the money and use it specifically for your schooling. You're choosing to, much like if a walk-on or a partial scholarship baseball player, again, just to use the national champions at Mississippi State, went out and got a local deal with the restaurant to go sign autographs every Friday for $5,000. They don't have to spend that money on their school. They're choosing to spend that money on the school. So, I mean, that's how this works. And I think if the end result is, again, a better, more efficient, less debt, accumulating college experience, that's a good thing. And I also think, for people worrying about a competitive disadvantage, and, hopefully the premise is to benefit the student athlete, not to create some backdoor, competitive disadvantage. I think you're going to see, it's not like you're going to have 1 or 2 teams doing this and nobody else doing it. If this becomes more commonplace and we're still getting a feel for what the marketing or for what the market itself is, if this becomes a regular thing, it's going to be a regular thing everywhere. And it's going to create more opportunities for student athletes who otherwise wouldn't have the chance to go to school debt free.
Yeah. And another thing too, when you talk about these smaller companies, another thing it does, 2 things. It gets them on campus that they can dictate terms. Because when it comes to these colleges and universities, let's face it, they used to controlling everything. But like you said, Kevin, I'm coming on campus and I'm saying, hey, how many teams don't have enough scholarships? Why? Because I'm trying to fill that gap. So you take Mississippi State, who just won their first ever national championship in baseball. And I'm saying I'm trying to make sure all these guys got scholarships. And what you need those guys to do, I need them to do what they do on social media. Just talk about it. Think about this. Do what they do. I'm willing to pay that much money. Advertising is how businesses stay in business. So you telling me I'm going to get a demographic that I probably don't have buying my product, saying, hey man, come on over here and get. I'm telling you, it's such a win-win. It's just the fact that it's so many opportunities out there that people are looking past. What you saw yesterday was the company saying, look, man, let's do it for the walk-ons. Why? Because they the only ones don't have to pay.
Press for them as well. I mean, I'll go lie, it's good press for that company.
I mean, Kevin, me, you, BJ, we got young children. And just say our children are in college and they playing a sport. BJ, your wife was an athlete, right? And they're not on scholarship. Your child calls you and say, not only am I on scholarship, what? They gave all of us scholarships. You're going to be like, wait, what? So guess what? Now you're endorsing the product because they did something for your most prized possession. These people are smart. When you do it for my little ones, oh, you do it for me.
I agree. It's a win-win. Like you said, it's a win-win.
Absolutely.
We've got more to come here on 3 and Out, including Dave Archer, former Falcons quarterback, Falcons Radio Network. We're talking Falcons and Titans tonight. He'll join us in about 15 minutes here on 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Great to be here with you on this Friday. Kevin, BJ, and Ben. Braves tonight up in D.C. against the Nationals and about to face a run of what you would consider subpar teams with the Nationals, their big sell-off at the trade deadline, the Marlins there as well. Braves, I don't know if it's market correction, and you like to use that term, BJ, but absolutely got smoked last night by the Reds, which is going to happen. You're going to lose some games, but a chance to bounce back here over the next 6 at least, with Nationals, Marlins, who are down at the bottom of the East standings and not looking to go anywhere anytime soon. So a great chance to keep pace or gain some ground here this weekend and into next week.
Yeah, I think it's actually 9 because you're talking about, DC and Miami, but you have the Baltimore Orioles who have struggled after that as well before you get into some of the NL West series. So a real chance to make a move. But, Kevin, of course it was a market correction. Like we talked about, Kyle Muller was not going to have a 2.4 ERA for the whole season, and I think he's still done a remarkable job this year. Going back down to Gwinnett, I think a chance to get regular starts in when you add Enoa and later Ian Anderson back to the rotation. So really excited about the future that you have with Kyle Muller, and certainly want to congratulate him on his success. We'll see him back up doing big things for the Braves. But I think this is a team that should still be excited. One big loss doesn't change that. And I think, Ben, you feel like you are clearly the better team with a lot more to play for here in this series against the Nationals.
Well, yeah, I mean, what happened last night just shows that anybody can get rocked on any given night, Kevin. I mean, it's still the bigs. I mean, I understand that one loss or win doesn't really dictate a barometer of a team, especially when you think about a Braves team that right now, Kevin, do you think sometimes, that we just got scoreboard watching? It's what we do compared to what they're doing around us. So when we used to be scoreboard watching with the Mets, well, now they're scoreboard watching us. We're watching, obviously the Phillies right now. And last night is going to happen. But, because the Reds aren't your biggest problem, it's still those Mets. You keep them behind you, keep them in the rear view, and obviously make sure you can still see those Phillies. Don't let them get too far ahead. But I do agree sometimes last night happens, but this Braves team has found a way to stay in it in spite of. If somebody would have given you 2021 season and they say, all right, this is going to happen, 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 you probably going to be like, oh, that season's over. Nope. They're right behind the Phillies. So it just shows the type of culture there that's with the Braves and hope, but yet still, I can't deal with too many games like last night because I don't want that to be a trickle effect, Kevin. But I do so many games of baseball. One game really has no bearing on the next game.
Yeah, it really doesn't, especially when you got good starting pitching going. The Braves, by and large, have had that. Huascar Ynoa is going to get called up to take Kyle Muller's spot, and we only say Huascar Ynoa because Ian Anderson not quite ready to come back yet. But, I mean, things still looking up for the Braves. I think moving forward, all you got to do now is take care of your business. I think, BJ, you're now at the time of the season where you really take that old kind of Bobby Cox mantra to heart. Just win series. 2 out of 3, 2 out of 3, 2 out of 3. If you do that, you're going to gain some ground on the Phillies. You're going to put yourself in a position to go out there and be in a position to take first place. 2 out of 3, 2 out of 3. Sometimes you'll have a chance, maybe like the next 9 games, to take 3 out of 3. Orioles are bad. Marlins are bad. Nationals traded away a lot of their good pieces. They're not good. They're bad. Take advantage of that and have it work in your favor when you get those opportunities. But by and large, take series, much like you did with the Reds. 2 out of 3 against the good teams like the Reds. Call that a success and move on.
Absolutely. And look, we're all going to get caught up in the minutia of the day-to-day change in the standings. But like you said, over the long haul, kind of a macro view of the last couple of weeks here, the last month plus 2 months, if you win series, you will win the division. That's just the way it goes. And, right now, of course, we're going to be scoreboard watching. Right now, guess who the Phillies are playing? The Reds, and the Reds are pretty hot, I think we'd all say, after last night. So a chance to continue to watch the team you're directly competing with, maybe run into the tougher part of their schedule. But I think more so than just win series, because baseball, and you've talked about this, Kevin, baseball is a sport where, like you said, you may go out and you might lose 13-2 one night. You might go out and just might not beat the teams you're better than. Beat the teams you're better than. You're going to have an opportunity to go head-to-head with Philadelphia and New York, and unfortunately, you're going to run into a couple of teams out of the West in the National League. But beat the teams you're clearly better than. And if you're going to beat teams you're clearly better than, it starts here with the Nats, the Marlins, and the Orioles. And
we will have Nats and Braves coming up here in just a little bit as they get started for a 3-gamer here this weekend. We got baseball. We also have football coming up. The Falcons and Titans tonight. We'll have Dave Archer, Falcons Radio Network, former Falcons QB. He will join us ahead of tonight's Falcons and Titans showdown there in Atlanta. The debut of Arthur Smith as the Falcons head coach. What should we expect? We'll ask Dave next when we come back. It's 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network.
Greg Blue, former All-American at the University of Georgia. This is Three and Out with BJ, Ben, and Kevin.
Good to have you here on this Friday. Kevin Thomas, BJ Bennett, Ben Troop. Glad you're making us a part of your day. Falcons and Titans tonight in Mercedes-Benz as we get the debut of Arthur Smith. And joining us here from the Atlanta Falcons Radio Network, former Falcons quarterback as well, Dave Archer steps in here with us on Three and Out. Dave, welcome. How are you?
I'm doing good. Now that I've gotten through Atlanta traffic, it only took me an hour and 45 minutes to get to the stadium. So I just now walked in the stadium. So good to be with you guys.
Hey, well, I hope it's smooth sailing from here forward after that trek. But obviously tonight, the debut of Arthur Smith as the head coach. We get a chance to look at Kyle Pitts. Who are you more excited to kind of evaluate after tonight? Arthur Smith, Kyle Pitts. What are you looking forward to?
Well, I want to see the offensive line and them come off the ball. The basis of this offense is going to be to come off the ball and run and beat people up physically. That'll, lend itself to the passing game, the play-action passing game. I'm not sure how much Kyle Pitts or if he plays at all tonight. I have no idea. There's been no indication of who's going to play in the game. I just want to see some cohesion in the run game. I think that's kind of the backbone of what Arthur wants to do, and I'm looking forward to seeing some battles along the offensive line.
Dave, how would you evaluate the Falcons preseason here before getting to the games? How has camp gone thus far?
Yeah, I think it's been a pretty good camp. I think that we've seen some good stuff. We've seen some stuff they haven't done very well, which is kind of the way camp goes. I think that some surprises for me is Mike Davis is a much better player than I anticipated to be, a much quicker player. I thought he was kind of a bludgeon you running back. This guy's lightning quick coming out of the backfield. He's got 59 passes a year ago. I think that's going to really lend itself to being a 3-down opportunity for him to be on the field for him. I'm excited about that. I think that the defense, the linebacker core is exciting to me and what Dean Pease is going to be able to do with this linebacker group. Certainly Deion Jones and Foye Oluokun, but I'm expecting Michael Walker to break out and do some stuff for him at the linebacker spot. So there's a couple areas that I'm going to look at over the next few weekends to watch and see how those groups come together. But Dean Pease has been a wizard in the 3 places he's been before. He'll probably need to be that again this year for Atlanta to be good on defense. He has the ability to do that, and there's some personnel here that I think that's going to allow him to do it.
And Dave, even sticking with the defensive side of the ball, how are they going to, orchestrate a pass rush this year? They're not going to be able to stay in games if they can't, get a constant pressure on that, on the opposing QB. Who you looking outside of Dante Fowler and obviously Grady Jarrett? Who are some other guys you looking to be really step up this year on that defensive line?
Well, pass rush is going to have to be an accumulation of a bunch of guys. I don't think you're looking for one guy. Obviously, you'd like to see Dante Fowler step up and be the guy you signed a year ago. Tuioti Mariner is a guy that's going to have to step up and play, but I think it's going to be more of a sum of their parts than one particular player. I think they have the ability to put pressure on the quarterback. Deion Jones surfaces a guy that can blitz from that middle backer spot that he had 4.5, 5 sacks a year ago. I think that's something that they're going to look to do. Dean Pease has done that in the past in creating opportunities. He's a concept guy, and I think he attacks teams the way they protect their quarterbacks, and he can develop concepts to create creases in the offensive line to provide opportunities for guys like Deion Jones, maybe the safeties to blitz. Now, you'll say, hey, if we're going to blitz, that's going to make us vulnerable in the back end, and it does. There's no question. A.J. Terrell has looked tremendous in practice so far. Fabian Moreau has looked outstanding at corner, and quite frankly, Isaiah Oliver has looked good, solid at that slot position. So it's going to put a lot of stress on the secondary if you do bring people, but I think this is going to be more of a sum of your parts as opposed to one particular player providing pass rush.
And Dave, you look at the rookie class coming in. You mentioned you don't know if Kyle Pitts is going to play or not, but what about the rest of the draft picks? Are there guys that are looking to impress here? You mentioned the secondary, didn't mention the second-round draft pick, who I know was third on the depth chart there, Richie Grant. What are you looking for out of this rookie class, their first time under the lights?
Well, Grant certainly got the ability. I think that he's drinking a little bit through a fire hose right now and trying to absorb what Dean Pease wants him to do, because they've got him playing multiple places. And sometimes that slows down your growth, but ultimately it makes you a better player, that you know how to play more than just one spot on the field. And so I think that's why you see Richie Grant maybe down a little bit on the depth chart. And don't get too caught up in that. The initial depth chart that comes out usually lists the guys that are more veteran at the top and the younger guys at the bottom. But as far as the draft class goes, Jalen Mayfield's looked really good. He's played right tackle for the most part. He can play left guard. I think he's in the mix for both. I think more right tackle than anything else. Caleb McGarry back on the field here over the last few days. That's made that a little bit more of a log jam at the right tackle position. And then what's going on at left guard? Drew Dahlman is a guy that I think that has a chance to play left guard. He certainly has the ability to play center. We know Josh Andrews is the veteran that they brought in, that they're competing. So there's a lot of competition along that wall. And then Avery Williams, the return guy, is an interesting dude. He was outstanding in college. He's going to get his opportunity to return kicks here. So I'm excited about what he might be able to contribute in special teams.
Is there a settled depth chart yet along the offensive line? And if not, who should we be watching over the next couple of weeks?
Say that again. I'm sorry. I missed the first part of that.
Is there a settled depth chart along the offensive line? And if not, are there some players we should be watching the next couple of weeks?
Well, those guys I mentioned, those two young players, Jalen Mayfield certainly is in the mix at right tackle. Ultimately, if Caleb McGarry comes back and takes over the right tackle spot, I think Jalen Mayfield certainly has the ability to maybe slide in and play some left guard. Dahlman is going to be there. Look for their Sam Jones has been outstanding in camp so far. He's a big, tough, rough guy that's been playing some left guard along with Josh Andrews. So that's kind of where you are. You're settled at left tackle. You're settled at center. You're settled at right guard with Lindstrom, Hennessy, and Matthews. But those left guard and tackle are the two areas. The right tackle position are two guys. And Willie Beavers has been pretty good as well. I mean, I shouldn't leave him out. He's done a good job, and he's going to be a swing tackle tonight. Look for him to play right tackle and left tackle tonight to see if he could potentially be that versatile guy that can play swing tackle for him in the event of an injury.
And Dave, I mean, I know this is his head coaching debut as well. What are your early impressions of Arthur Smith?
Sorry, guys, I can't really hear you. It's really muffled. You guys are really muffled. I'm in the stadium, so I think it's
What are your impressions or expectations of Arthur Smith thus far?
Well, my expectations are he's a football coach. That's what he is. He's not a politician. He's not a kiss baby. He's not going to make you feel good about anything. He's a football coach. He wants to come off the ball and shorten people's necks. He wants to play physical. He wants his team to play physical. The accountability that he talked about when he took the job has been evident. I mean, just in little things, silly things. If you jump offside, you run a lap around the field. They jumped offside consecutive downs in a practice a couple of days ago. He made the entire offense run around the field while the defense stood and waited for him. They ran all Matt Ryan, Ridley, everybody running around. Just the accountability of what you're responsible for to not make those mistakes. That was just one thing. But Arthur Smith has done everything I expect him to be. He's not playing any favorites to anybody. He's trying to find his best possible players. He understands that's the best way to keep his job, and that's what he's doing. And I think it's been very no-nonsense training camp. When they work, they work. He loves to joke around with the guys off the field, but when they get on the field, it's time to go.
Dave Archer, Falcons Radio Network, our guest here on 3 and Out. Dave, appreciate the time. Enjoy the game tonight. Thanks so much.
Thanks, you guys too. Take care, Bubba.
Appreciate it. Dave Archer joining us here, Falcons Radio Network, and former Falcons quarterback as well as the Falcons-Titans game one. Ben, new head coach Arthur Smith. What do you do game one? We got about 2 minutes here before we got to step aside, but what do you do game one? Obviously, the preseason, you don't want to show your cards, but you want to evaluate your team. What are you looking to see out of Arthur Smith game one here against the Titans?
Just execution. I mean, when you install a new offense, a new defense, and sometimes the terminology makes it so that guys can't go out there and play loose. Arthur Smith, as Dave said, look, he's not going to be kissing babies, taking pictures. He's a football coach. I expect you to go out there, and I expect you to go out there and dominate. So give me five.
And we may have lost Ben there for a second. What are you looking for, BJ?
Yeah, I just think like what Dave mentioned, cohesion. Expecting individual progress, whether it's through statistics or highlights, can be unproductive, I think, in the preseason when you're trying to work on things that maybe need to be worked on, so you're not going to be at your best. I just want to see communication. I want to see cohesion. I want to see guys being on the same page, not really worried about winning or losing, not really worried about a certain statistical threshold. Just look like you're comfortable. And I think if you see that, that's a good sign ahead of the start of the season.
Kevin, just look at the preseason real similar to kind of like a preseason baseball. When certain guys gonna work on the pitches they're not good at, right? Like, look, dude, let's go out here and work on the things you're not good at. And don't get so caught up in. I never like coaches that say, "Hey man, we won the first preseason game." That has no bearing on the regular season. Go out there and work on things that we've been working on in practice. You're not gonna show too much. And at the end of the day, man, dominate the guy in front of you. You cannot stress that enough. You don't want them to stop the tape. And they saying, how many times did this guy dominate you? Is that Aaron Donald you're going up against? Is that Lawrence Taylor? Go out there and do your job.
Hey, absolutely. We appreciate Dave joining us there from Mercedes-Benz. They get ready for Falcons and Titans coming up tonight from the Falcons Radio Network. Also, John Shipley, Jaguar Report on SI.com. Join us as well. Braves, Nationals coming up next. We'll see you Monday here on 3 and Out.